great to see so many people still here. This is the last session. I guess since I flew a long way to moderate the last session. I'm normally based in Geneva, if you're wondering why this tall English bloke is here moderating this. Raj mentioned earlier in his comments that when the earthquake struck, because I had friends in the Nepali technical community in the Internet Society, and I also had friends working for the Office for Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs at the UN agencies, because I work in Geneva, I called my friends at OCHA and said, do you know any of the local technical people? And they said, no, we don't have those connections. Can you connect us up? And as Raj mentioned, I literally started a Google spreadsheet that crowdsourced engineers who told their friends who had their specializations to the spreadsheet, and then added a number of the UN people who were the first to arrive to the spreadsheet so that they could just get a conversation going with one another. And part of the reason I tell this story as a moderator is because it sort of points to an example of something that we don't have when a disaster strikes. There are institutional arrangements between UN agencies, between agencies and national governments, inside governments, between telecom providers worldwide. They have associations and the like, but too often there aren't relationships with the local communities who are the ones best able to help repair their own technical infrastructure, as well as communicate what is broken to the non-residents who have arrived to help. And so, since we're fortunate here, we have with us people who have all survived and worked in recent disasters, and we have this very broad title of the session. I thought maybe, especially since it's the end and we've all had many good ideas, perhaps each of our panelists might think of, if they could, if they had a magic wand and could make, say, one or two things happen take the delegate to my right first, since he asked to go last, but maybe Raj, you would like to start. I know you have some thoughts on the subject.
So you want to hear about my magic wand idea first, or you want to hear about it later?
Good enough to start with the magic wand, I reckon.
Okay, so if I had the privilege of having a magic wand, which I would wave at times of disaster and so forth, what would it be? Very simply, it would go boom, and I would have a network in place that would connect to weather information, it would connect to civil organizations, the police force, the military, whoever the responders are. It would interconnect all of them, they would all talk to each other. And really the background for that particular comment is this. So where I live in the Blue Mountains in Australia, we have a lot of bushfires. That's when basically the whole bush jungle starts, well, it goes alight and it burns and it burns. And it's not a disaster like an earthquake, but it still is a massive disaster because it has a devastating effect on the ecosystem, as well as, of course, people's houses and lives. And every single time we've had that, Australia is a developed country, it's an advanced country, we've got great technology, great money, we throw into things. But every single time I've been part of a team that's responded to what we call the rural fire service, is that we all stand around trying to get basic information on which way the wind is turning, so we know which way the fire is going to get blown. And do we go south or do we go north? Do we go west or do we go east? Who do we evacuate? Because when the fire front comes, there's nothing that will stop it. You just have to get out of its way. So some very basic information is never available to us on the ground. And yes, we have fire trucks, we've got a comm system in place between the fire brigade and so on and so forth. But it's the guys on the front line, people, myself and the hundreds and thousands of others who do this on a voluntary basis, that if they don't have the time and bits of information, it's very hard to take action and figure out what to do, and you have to depend on something coming from somewhere else. And sometimes, by the time that message comes through, the winds have changed and the fire has gone through the whole location. So the magic wand would be, an ad hoc type of network that would give us connectivity not just to internal information, but as well as external information. Even as simple as access to mapping systems, be it Google Map or Bing or whoever does a mapping system. That I think would be the magic wand. After all that, in terms of looking at the future, what Nick had set up for Nepal last year, the amazing thing was that it was a very simple thing to do. It was just a spreadsheet that everyone could access and enter information to and extract information out of. When disaster strikes, there's the panic and paranoia that goes with it. And really, in the panic mode, you first, of course, look out for yourself and your family and try to figure out your close ones, are they still okay, and so on and so forth. And so then those circles start to widen out to other people, friends, family, other cities, and then, of course, you've got people from overseas trying to contact you still around and if things are okay. So it really, and in all that madness and chaos that exists, and it happens every time, every disaster, pretty much everywhere. Even the most advanced, developed countries in the world face the same problem. It's as simple as that. So really having that basic piece of information, let's call it a database, but it's just a spreadsheet that sits somewhere, which people update on a regular basis. That would be a very simple, basic start. And Nick and I and others were talking last night with dinner, and prior to that we know this is the most disaster-prone region in the world. And we have some countries in the region, of course, which we know face more issues over time than any others. The Philippines is one, Nepal is another, islands in the Pacific are some others. So it wouldn't be too hard to conceive that, let's set up these lists that Nick initiated for countries in the region which are susceptible to such environmental disasters or natural disasters. I should say, environmental disasters as a whole. So really, I think that's and again, it's something simple. It doesn't require, throughout the days I was watching the presentations, everyone spoke good things, there's the talk about what I would call the high-level philosophical stuff. We need to have frameworks, and we need to have this training and that training, and this and that. But when it comes to the moment when things do happen, it's the basic information that is the most help, not the high-level stuff. So I'll leave it with that.
Thank you, Raj. But that is a nice lead-in for you, Bettina, from given your experiences with hurricanes and floods.
Hi, I'm Bettina from the Philippines. During Haiyan, the biggest problem that we encountered really was communications. Post any disaster, I think what we forget is that is when you can save more lives, the first 24 to 48 hours. And without communications, that job cannot be done properly. Many things have been discussed today with regards to actually not sending the right medicines, nor the right food, nor whatever other type of relief and support to the right areas. Why again? Because of lack of communication. I'm quite happy to have heard what transpired here. Yes, we did have the Yolanda hashtags and all these things happening, but normally in the Philippines, we usually bank and count on the telcos to actually set up communications right after any event, any disaster. In the time of Yolanda, we realized that if a disaster is as bad as what transpired both here in Nepal and in the Philippines, the telcos themselves are victims. So they cannot react as quickly as we normally expect them to. So what does that mean? That means it is incumbent in the government and its people to be able to develop such a structure. Okay, we cannot afford to depend on the tempos all the time. So, my friend Raj kind of stole the thunder from me, but let me add my 2 cents to this whole endeavor. I was telling them last night during this discussion that I would like to see a guidebook, okay? Just like you would in TripAdvisor, what's the best place to go to, who are the people that you should talk to, where should you be staying. More importantly, as was mentioned just a few minutes ago, it's a guidebook for dummies, okay? This means that the people who don't know how to read all these long narratives can actually understand what we need them to do, okay? I've seen so many thick write-ups on strategies, on next steps. We've all been discussing through several conferences in the last 3 years. What are the problems? What should we do to answer the problems? What I'm saying is, the answer to the problem is actually getting it out to the public, getting it done. And the best way to do this is by simplifying the process. No? What worked? Something as simple as everybody previous to a disaster should already start registering the fact that they would be willing to help or volunteer should a disaster happen. And these are their specializations. Let us not wait for the disaster. So what happens is post-disaster, automatically your network rises because everybody will then go to that go-to place online to actually do the work. So this network should be set up way before the disaster. That means today. So that is my 2 cents worth, and I hope we can make this happen and provide these guidelines for all of the nations, at least through Asia Pacific, to buy in on this and make sure that it actually is rolled out. Thank you.
So, in a way, I guess we should almost say we shouldn't look at first responders as we often do, which is it's the firemen, it's the telcos, it's an aid organization. In a real way, the first responders is everyone who is in a disaster being able to say, here is the scope of the problem as quickly as possible so that specialists can actually know where to go.
Beyond that, I think, yes, communication, but more than that is taking off what you did is actually now that we have established who the volunteers are ahead of time. Your network is already there. So your first responders are really the people that are already on the ground, not the ones that will be flying in.
Okay, so with that, whoever goes last here actually has the hardest job, you realize this, because...
Thank you, Nick. Yeah, I'm Suman Pradhan. So basically, talking about disaster time could be to survive a life. We would say water and food is the most essential items. But when the disaster just happen, then you won't care about water and food at the moment. I believe you seek to communicate to the others, either to convey you are safe, or to convey you are not safe, you need help, or you want to take your families and dearest and nearest. So at the time, communication indeed, as my previous panelist mentioned, is happened to be very essential. And definitely, I would expect if I have a magic stick, then I would, pray or I would wish that everyone communicate to each other. So, when you are talking about communications, talking to each other or conveying each other, so what the experience that we had in last earthquake is the broadband or internet or social media works better than the other GSM network, because the congestion in the network, people is not being able to make a call, but they are tweeting, they are Vibering, or they are Facebooking, right? So the thing is, it has proved that the broadband network or social media has helped a lot. And when you talk about the broadband or internet connections, and that time, what we expect is that your wireless broadband is more feasible or more reliable than the wired line broadband. So wireless broadband has, I would suggest, or we should focus on when we're talking about the preparing for disaster, or preparing for the disaster, preparedness for the disaster. Then basically, yes, of course, to the day-to-day life, that wired line broadband or fast broadband has become essential. But at that time, you cannot rely on that. And after talking about the wireless broadband, of course, you would say you would focus on the towers or the antennas at that time. And again, coming back that wide city line supply you cannot expect, right? Because I believe that when disaster happened, then the authorities forcefully cut off the city lines. Then when there is no city line, it tries to be a stupid idea, isn't that? Having a city line supply over there. But for the disaster time, you need to have solar backup. Only the solar backup sites will run, the other things won't run. And so that we should focus on this, having this prepare or keeping stock of these solar panels or batteries are very important. Then again, sorry, I forgot the name. Talk about the congestion in network. Then maybe when everyone try to solve the net or social media, that also make congestion, or that will also not help. So probably we could have developed some applications which can use in the disaster time only, like texting the message only. So that at that time, if the traffic is huge and traffic is not helping out, then we can have proxy, or we can have firewall to cut the other heavy traffic heavy traffic hungry social sites. Only the use social site we can have access to the people. So that in this way we can keep everyone talking to each other, even at a very strong or very heavy disaster time. So what I wish the service is that. Thank you.
Great. And last but not least.
So planning for disaster is planning when plan does not work. So that's why it's a very critical source for us. So based on my few sentences will be based on my experience and what we are going to do next. So up to now, what we are planning to do the next. As far as the emergency communications, we have talked a lot, but I'll talk in a broader sense in the disaster management. So first, let's come in the communications. We all know the problem. So I want to add with his statement that in case of voice calls also, we need to manage the congestion also. So the major problem we faced during this disaster was the call duration. So if every call durations, there were the long call durations during the disaster. If we could cut off those call durations within the 30 seconds or 50 seconds so that everybody could connect to each other. So that was missing in the past, our experience, so we could have done that. So, and we didn't have any priority call routing mechanism deployed right now, so we face the problems during the April earthquake also. So we have to look for that also. So moving from the communication to the disaster management. So first problems we face is the data collections or the responses people make. So we established the call center. So it took us around 2 days to establish the call center after the earthquake. If we had that call center earlier, then we could have collected more information in a timely manner. So that was we could improve in that part also. So we deployed Ministry of Home Affairs. In the past 3 years, they tried to deploy Sahana software for the disaster management. But the problem was very few people were trained on the Sahana software, and they have a lack of capacity to customize that software. So with first couple of days, we tried to use that Sahana software at that time, but we failed to go with that Sahana software. So we developed different portals and managed all the rescue and relief operations. So with limited features. And as Singh said, so we also use the spreadsheet at the last options for the spreadsheet. So in the emergency, as he said, the spreadsheet used to be a very useful tool. And next is regarding the social media. The one problem we face is the use of the social media also. From the beginning of this day conference, we said that the different agencies are saying that we have a Twitter handle, we have a Facebook page, everything. But in that disaster, what we noticed is we have at least 4 parallelly active Twitter handles and Facebook pages. So the information went to the different sites. So even the different these Twitter handles and the Facebook, they were giving the different data. So that was the problem we faced. So we have to plan for a single those social media. Okay, fine. If NUOC is going to lead this all the operation, then there should be a single social media page or handles for that. And using the social media, we face another problems also. So the responding to the queries or responding to the issues that raise in the social media also. So our people were not so trained to respond to those queries that in the beginning, in the first week, we faced. So it was something like so people seeing things that the government is not working, they cannot respond to their people's. So media went in that line, but later on when we came with the portals and the more trained tools on the social media, so we were able to make up the image of the government at the rest. And then, okay, for the future planning, so we have been developing a national emergency telecommunication continuity planning, which says all the roles of the operators, Ministry of Information and Communications, and Ministry of Home Affairs. So what they need to do during the emergency. So what their obligations for the planning for the obligations. Everything are defined in that. This is a policy document. And the next thing is we are going to use we are planning to use the remote sensing for developing early warning systems, and we are planning to tie up that early warning system with the mobile devices also. And then finally, so we put on the technology, but we are now focusing on the training our people more on those technologies, so that in case of the emergencies, we can use those technologies. Thank you. If any queries, so I'll respond later.
Thanks very much. We've gotten several ideas there. One thing that kind of strikes me, I'll just throw it out there, is you almost need a box that you can drop that will start working on solar power and provide a Wi-Fi network that a village could use with maybe some way to interface major social media apps in a low bandwidth way to at least specific emergency information pages so people could see important information and actually transmit information about their location. Or something like this, so there would be almost immediate access, even if there was no telephony network available. But I don't want to prejudge any part of the conversation. Maybe we should ask if there are any thoughts from the floor. Do you have any reactions, Raj?
Yeah, so just on that, you know, as you were speaking, so, you know, there's lots of people doing lots of interesting stuff, trying to develop low power, low cost systems of a similar nature. But I think what you mentioned just now is the killer app, if you like, in there. Because the problem is, as soon as you drop in one of those wireless boxes and open up to the community, people have all sorts of stuff running on their phones and tablets, and they'll just hog the bandwidth. You know, people don't turn off updates. These things go nuts with getting updates, and it's ridiculous. It's all broken, honestly. So the interesting thing would be if we were then to put in some sort of social media gateway, and that gateway would actually flick a switch, which would make everything go to Twitter-like, Facebook-like. You know, I cut down very low bandwidth version of that. Obviously, the service providers, Twitters and Facebooks of this world, would need to be able to provision that into their backend, so that, you know, if this device goes live with a certain security key code, which says, okay, this is now running in disaster mode, it needs to be low bandwidth, you know, literally text only. I mean, that's the sort of thought we're looking at, right? And
no lol cats.
Yeah, no cats, yeah. So that would be interesting, I think. So maybe people are working on this, I don't know, but that bit is interesting. I would also go back to what Bettina said earlier about the disaster response modality. You know, I really think, you know, again, I could be wrong here, but every time I hear, discuss, see these things, there still is no basic list of things we need in place. Maybe someone's made a list, maybe it's sits somewhere. When you go and talk to the police or to the civil service organization, whoever else, they have no idea what to do and what to implement. What should I have as a basic, you know, 10 things I need to have in place, knowing a disaster will strike next week, next month, tomorrow, I don't know, whatever. And then there's always a scramble trying to make things work. So what's the basic set of core things we need in place?
Well, we've given you a number of ideas. Perhaps some of you have some too, or some comments. I see one hand already, 2. Someone has the microphone, 3, 4. I see there's going to be no shortage of comments on this.
Right, so I think we should leave the stage and let the other thing come.
That won't come up here.
Hello. My name is Srini Prayamaji. I'm one of the, I'm an activist and a blogger. My thing is, you know, when the earthquake happened, for me, the world was black that day. The world was completely black because there was no internet, the communication channels were shut down, dead, no electricity. We were located in a land, open land, and you know, a lot of people were there. And as soon as the quakes would come in, people were getting scared, and few of the people's phones were active. And the thing was, you know, social media, yes, social media helped us to an extensive level. But I really admired what Facebook did. Facebook developed a small an app. I think that was an app, AM CDT. So that was very credible because it didn't use too much of bandwidth, and you could just do it. And it, you know, there were like people would know. So you were sending information using less bandwidth. If you talk about ground reality at that time, phones were not working, internet was, I don't know. I didn't have access, right? At that time, at the time of crisis, because there were issues. So I would say disaster is something that is very dynamic. You know, you build a strategy today. It's not going to work at that time. You have to focus more on resources, on basic needs of people so that you can quantify that. Because those, at that time, the action that you think can be more. Because there was a case, I heard something like this, that in few of the schools, there were children studying because it was a Saturday and they had some coaching classes going on. And few of the children who came outside went inside and they took the, they sat under the benches because communication was not clear to them, right? So these kind of issues are there. So what I'm trying to say is disaster is something that we cannot say that we will build up this strategy, that strategy. No, at the time of need is what and where we have to use our human resource, our capacity, our brains with the local resources that are available. So these are the things that we should understand. Because at that time you will not have an antenna that will be working. You probably have to go and build it, right? So, that's the strategy, that's the thing. And I think most of us all will agree that social media, yes, social media has a lot of use, but we need social media to the simplification of where thousands of people can use it, where it will make sense. It can be given a particular meaning. Because I personally felt that. I was scared. And during the second earthquake, we were doing some relief in Chisapani. We were coming down. Out of the blues, there were sounds and there were clouds of dust coming down. We tried the phones. The phones were busy. The phones were not working. Everybody was running around like crazy. Still, when I speak of this, I get goosebumps. It was that scary. We ran at the speed of 80. We didn't care. We had to go to the place where our families, I wanted to be there. And at that time, internet was not working. Phone was not working. So you can understand, this is the reality. I can understand that, people did efforts. I'm not trying to say that there were not efforts done, because even I had seen CAN had set up a Wi-Fi at Toorik Hill, but at the time of crisis, that's what matters, because that's when you need the thing. Thank you.
So, Nuan Vaidyanathan from Indonesia. So you talked about the Dropbox. Anybody thought about 4G boxes? I mean, they have quite a big, range, backhaul range, and if you can cover it with a node to, backhaul its data, 700 megahertz is something that people are working on with the LTE, and those boxes are pretty small and light, right? And they need like 5 volts and, I don't know, 1.2 amps, something like that. Okay, so Sahana didn't, now I'm talking as a Sahana director here. Sahana didn't work out well because what we advocate is that you should have the systems ready. It should be integrated into your daily practices and then use it during a crisis. So for example, if you was to say you should implement an incident management system for the NEOC, what you should be doing is implement it for the police who use it on a daily basis, but have a link back to the NEOC that you can reuse it during a crisis. Interesting about Sahana and Excel, we advocate spreadsheets because it's becoming the hot theme for data exchange. So we have any of our data views can be exported and imported using Excel sheets. I was going to ask the panel whether you are aware of the Humanitarian Exchange Language Standard. If you are not, it's a standard based by OCHA. And so they use hashtags. So whenever you fill up an Excel sheet using these hashtags, anybody in the world can understand it because, and then Sahana can also understand it. I just want to make those comments and thank you.
You might want to stand up so you can.
Namaste. I am Bharat. I am also a student of information technology. And yeah, from this seminar I had expected something that the most of the presenters presented what they did in the event and what happened in the disaster, but what I had expected is what they had done for the next event. If such disasters comes again, what preparedness have we made? How we have prepared for the next event? But none of the speakers I found presented in that manner. So what is the reason is learning lessons from the Nepal. That is, we learned lessons from these disasters. But what have we done till this time for the next disaster? It would be more useful if it could be explained in an elaborated way. Thank you.
I'd just like to react to the comments. You're saying, what are we doing to prepare for the next disaster? I think for the Philippine government, and I do agree, what normally happens in a disaster is people panic and they forget everything that they learned. The only one that has done really well in such a situation is Japan. They are very well indoctrinated, that's the word that I should use, it's a very strong word, but they know what they have to do, and that's why there's minimal loss of lives, okay? No matter how big a disaster. So disaster preparedness is most essential in all of this. It's like we keep on discussing the children running back into the classrooms. That's because it's not just what you see on TV, but it's what we are taught and we practice in the schools. You know, when there is an earthquake, you go underneath your desks if you're inside the school. You know, maybe we should include a practice if you're outside the school, this is what you should do. But this is all part and parcel to how we prepare the people, okay? And I think that's something that has to be learned now. Even with regards to Sahana, again, I come from, my background is ICT, garbage in, garbage out, okay? So what does that mean? If my data is not good data, that data will not work later on. Which is why I am also saying that we should gather the data previews, gather the volunteers previews, and not do it when disaster happens. That's a little too late, okay? So with that in mind, I think our lessons between the Philippines, Nepal, and other countries, okay? I think we've come to terms with, yes, social media is good. Yes, we should use social media. I also understand the restrictions in terms of bandwidth. But then what we are doing in the Philippines is we're already looking at deploying sat phones, you know, keeping it in a special place, you know, that's well, you know, concretized, locked up, so even if there is a big flood or whatever else, it's high enough, you know. So these are mitigating circumstances. There's no 100% sure answer, but we can mitigate the, you know, the problems that occur post. So from our end, little things like that, like block boxes and all of that, we're not quite doing block boxes, but we're actually preparing the use of VSATs, the use of beacons to be deployed upon such circumstances, to include the solar panel campaign.
And one thing I would react also to that comment by saying that I think this is part of ensuring that the lessons that were learned are carried forward. For example, I think if an earthquake struck tomorrow, everyone in the ICT community would know exactly who in the government to call, and vice versa, and everyone in the telco systems would know exactly who to call, because you all would still have the numbers of the people you called a year ago and 6 months ago. So if that's true today, that could remain permanently true if everybody who now has everybody's contact details goes, okay, how do we record this information and keep it up to date? Just that. So that everyone will always know who to call at every institution. Like your comment about the call centers. Well, we should just have one all the time that can be immediately activated. So I think the answer to your question is, this is part of the answer, is there will definitely be another earthquake in Nepal. There will absolutely definitely be another earthquake in Nepal. There will definitely be another typhoon in the Philippines. And so, that being the case, we should do what Japan has done and say, we're just going to realize, we're going to just live this and prioritize the training so the kids don't run into the wrong building, and all of us know who to call. And okay, if social media is essential, how are we going to ensure that it's on within a guaranteed time of X for 80% of the affected population? If that's what's necessary, that's the goal, then how are we going to do that?
Yes, I want to add one thing. So we have another good success stories in April earthquake also. So two sectors, they were found most successful. So to add to your points. So one is health hospital, because they used to have an annual mock-up test, and they used to assign roles in case of disaster, whose role is what. So that was already pre-assigned. That's why teaching hospital, pre-hospital, and civil service hospital, they responded very well in that case of disaster. And another is APF. So they have a dedicated training center for the disaster rescue. So to add on these points, so this mock tests, roles assignments, everything, they are essential. So in case of now, we have 11 clusters in case of disaster. So now, in case of focal agencies, we have already assigned those focal agencies to which agencies and which persons to contact. So now we are doing big improvements after earthquake.
Okay, I would also like to add one from my end that thanking to Vasudevji for his concern that he's rightly said that maybe everyone participants over here is interested to know that what you learned from the last disaster, last earthquake, and what you did, right? And so talking about this, that of course there is two things, that one long term or short term, what we can do right now, or what we can prepare for for the long term things, that we just need a very good home and the exercise. Maybe this discussion is also the part of that exercise, that what we need to do for the long term. We are collecting the opinions and the experience or advice from all of the people here, and so that being the ISP internet service provider, what we can do for the future as a preparedness for the future disaster, right? And answering that, I don't want to discourage saying that we are just preparing. And as I mentioned, that what we have learned is that the city's line supply is not reliable and reliable at the time of disaster. So what we learned is the solar backup system is very much helpful at the time. So we are starting investing on solar panels, and we are gradually backing up the power with solar panels, the towers we are having around the country. So one thing what we are doing, and the second thing, as I repeat from my comment earlier, that wireless broadband is very much reliable at the time of disaster. So we are talking to the government currently the license is not deregulated, isn't that? The license is being is not given to the service provider for the broadband services here. They are undergoing exercise for that. So we are lobbying, or we are talking that let the ISPs have this spectrum or license for the broadband things. So, and government is, we feel that government is somehow little that convinced about this, and they have not understand the importance of this also. So this is also a preparedness for the future disaster. Thank you.
Raj, do you want to Bettina has
Sure. So just a word of caution that I want to throw into the mix. There was a lot of talk about social media and how that can be critical and is important, and I don't disagree with it at all. However, I would just like to state the obvious that not everyone in the world has a social media account, and many people don't. I have, let's say, Facebook and Twitter. Bettina does not use Twitter. So if the broadcast goes out on Twitter, it's useless to her. And then there's a large part of the population which don't have any form of social media account and no internet access. So let's not forget about those people either. So we need to keep the balance between, technology has great promises. I completely believe in that, but we also need to look at the larger population because disaster affects everybody, not just the people with social media accounts. Please.
Just to add, our experience in Yolanda, or Highland here, basically, I guess one of the things that, when I say communications, why I feel communications is important, it's when you're at a point in time when you're very desperate and there's death all around you, to the point that the experience that was told to me is like 5 days after Yolanda, actually, when one of the volunteers was heading back to the Philippines, heading back to Manila from Leyte, actually, the pandemonium at the airport was like you would see in I Am Legend. What does that mean? Women, mothers, were holding their children across the barrier and pleading for people that are getting on the plane to take their child. Okay, that is the scenario we're looking at when things like this happen. This is 5 days after. To date, I still get emotional about hearing that. But the biggest thing that we provided is we actually provided a VSAT, okay, wherein we put in TV white space, a CP at one end, and we were actually able to deliver connectivity to another area, which was about a 1.5 kilometers away, okay. The restriction that we had was there was no place or person that would secure the equipment at the other end. But at least we were able to provide connectivity. What does that mean? People were now able to go to certain pockets and actually talk to members of the family. Because at the point of desperation, that is the next best thing to actually getting food, is to be able to talk to your family at the other end. So that's something that I would like to share, and I think is very important, which we have not discussed today. And with that, I understand that TV white space is being tested here. I think it's a very good, quick deploy. We've tested it, we've used it, and I hope more countries actually take this up, and that's part of the black box connectivity that we're trying to deploy in the different areas in the country. Thank you.
Thanks very much. I think there was another hand raised in the room. Someone else had a question, or was perhaps not. Well, no, the mic is coming on. Please.
Thank you. I just with like already that participant already talk those issues. This is 1 day, 2 days program. There is a commitment from this 150 participant group. I already observed. There is a first thing is there is a communication. If there is no communication, there is a 10 or 5 commitment for this disaster management of coming. If there is any disaster, this should be thing that should be in mind. One that may be communication. Communication not only in symbol I am talking, overall in overall. On another, while we are in this earthquake, I am representing as a research officer from National Judicial Academy that train lawyers, judges, and government attorneys. We work in legal field. At the time we are in a training. That Saturday, there is a break, tea break. Luckily that tea break saved us. That 56 seconds, that triangle I faced under the table. Luckily, I am safe. There is a lack of, in Kathmandu, there is a open area, lack of open area we face. Another is power, energy supply, all are disturbed. There is the country is called the north side in Nepal. That should be also how we work together, and not only we are doing conference and just finished, just work together. Not only conference, other side also if we work together, that will make sense. Another is health. In health sector, there is the appreciation. The panelists already told, talk about those issues. There is no epidemic. There is a huge rumor of in Kathmandu Valley. There is a like Haiza. There is a lot of epidemic, but they control their effort. Very good effort. Another is there is a program of shelter. If one tent, we are asking for one tent, there are no giving. There is in people, there is lack of giving culture. I found everywhere. People are collecting 5 or 10 tents. People are collecting thousands of 3 or 5 years for restores their food. That kind of culture, how can we manage in this disaster situation? And another is food and medicine. Some donor is giving those kind of foods. That is there is news is comes also BBC or CNN also there is that is not used food. That is not what is this medical terminology or food term, that is not edible food are there. And another is there is now this is a Facebook is, but I'm not supporting Facebook. I love Facebook, but people are giving their comments in Facebook, not in their, they are not going in action. What makes sense? People are only giving comments and just tweeting like, we have to just go action. We need action. The youth need action. That kind of lots of people youth are engaged in that action. And there is already the government should be responsible, and the people who are in position, who have a power, those use the power and for the betterment of country, society, for the people. And that should be, those things should be intervened into policy. In the DAS, I feel so sorry, there are no representation of policy making people are not coming here. How can we policy intervene? Just we are doing, this is a big effort. I salute this INET Kathmandu, but those people who are in the policy, how can we guide those policy makers? How can like this hammering those policy people? If those things are to be considered and that will be in policy, 110 years there is no earthquake. God grace. We are here and then we work together, not in only conference, but outside also. This is Jyoti Pandey from NJA. I am a lawyer, advocate and trainer working in that field. Thank you.
Namaste everyone. I'm Rishi Ramthodam from Camp Capre. Actually, I want to share what I have learned from last disaster because this is the main theme of this program. I have noted 5 points. They are already discussed by us, but I want to repeat them. First one, we need to set disaster mode for communication system. Like we discussed earlier, if someone is speaking on telephone for 5 minutes, that is taking others time to share the information. So, it should be restricted to 10 to 15 seconds because that is enough to share you are okay. Second one, everyone on disaster time wants safety check, whether their family and their relatives are okay or not. So we need to develop some kind of application or some system that will help to implement safety check quickly as far as possible. And third point I have learned, we need help request system. I want to explain my own experience. After earthquakes, the second day, we gathered nearly 5-6 friends and we went to nearest village. But before we reached there were already someone who were helping. That means if we knew already there are someone, we will move to the new place. So, if we have some help request system that can communicate whether help is already available or they need more help, then it could be much better to deal on such situation. And another, I think we need a system for information showing. That means if there is some damages of the road, if someone saw that it is not possible for any vehicle to move from that route, there is a system to indicate that the road is blocked. So the helping will move from helicopter or some other ways. And the last one is we need a volunteer management system, because on such disaster, large number of volunteers are necessary, and I have seen in some places there are too many volunteers, in some places there are not at all. So these are the things I have learned from last disaster. Hope we'll be able to make some way to deal with the upcoming disaster. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'm struck by all of your suggestions actually, but in particular, one of them also echoes a previous comment about the Facebook, the very simple Facebook application which allows you to tell your relations that you're okay. There's a similar application from Google or People Finder that is actually used by the humanitarian community. It allows phones' last location to be visible, where someone has been, where a family member said, my relation is missing. It allows you to see where the phone was last on, so that at least you can narrow down the search a bit. But I'm struck by the crowdsourcing idea that you almost need to take things to the next step and say, not only do we need to know when people are lost and found, but who is available to go where, and conditions. A way to not only report somebody is lost, but a way to report a road is closed, or the telephone tower is actually fallen off the building versus the power is off, and this sort of thing. Anyway, is there any other comments? We're getting so many good contributions, I'm surprised. Any other thoughts from those of us up here? We have sort of 12 minutes left. We're in danger of ending early, which might be a good danger to be in, unlike the others we've been speaking of today. Do any of you have any sort of final thoughts you add? No?
Raj, since there is no further takers, okay. Look, no, nothing much further to it. I think it's been some great and interesting ideas that we put forward throughout the course of the day, actually, not just in the session, obviously. Some of the takeaways I have personally from this session in particular, and perhaps in some ways bits and pieces of other sessions, and I really like Bettina's idea about disaster management for dummies, disaster response for dummies, whatever she ends up calling it. And having that basic set of things that need to be in place. And it doesn't need to be infrastructure, really. It can be that having that spreadsheet in place and someone champions that so that it's updated every so often. Because let's also not forget that if the thing isn't updated regularly, it will become useless as well. So, and most countries that are disaster prone have some sort of disaster management authority, and perhaps they're the ones who can take charge of it. These are the IT experts, these are the medical experts, these are etc. that are within the country. Because let's not just depend on people from overseas to come in and help us out. There's always a lot of capacity and potential and knowledge within the country itself, and I think we need to tap that even better and further when disasters do happen. And the last thing I would say is that we need to keep things simple. As people have mentioned multiple times today, that when disaster strikes, there's always chaos and there's panic. And the last thing you do during panic mode is think rationally. So the simpler things are, the simpler places in which you can find them, I think the easier it is. That once you're over the first wave of emotions, that okay, what do we need to do to move on and get things fixed? So with that, thanks.
Well, thanks to the panel, and thanks to all of you for the ideas and for listening and for still being here. But I think we shall turn it over to our Master of Ceremonies.